It's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation, we the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need Brady to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket, open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pick. Still 5 on the floor, still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court, still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball, or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleepy paths or allowed to morning. The nut is sleeping us, never catch us on. Live from Miami, report in the heat with 5 Reasons Sports from the courts to the streets. Yeah, Wade County, Heat Nation, we still proud.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to another live edition of 5 on the Floor. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander, and with me, Brady Hawk. And Alex Toledo jumps in out of nowhere. We are going to recap what is now 8 losses in the last 10 games for your Miami Heat. They lose this one 132-125 up at MSG. Before we dive into that, want to shout out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. Show support. Check us out there. We are talking Miami Heat basketball 24/7. It is $2.99 a month. The link is in the description of this episode. You can vent about the Heat all day there, but also talk about how the hell they're going to turn this around, what they can do to upgrade the roster, what superstar they should go after next, or maybe what draft pick they should tank for. Whatever you want to talk about, do it on Off the Floor. That's where you're going to get the most heat anywhere. And shout out to our daily fantasy sponsor. Y'all know it, Prize Picks. Use that code 5. That gets you $50 instantly when you play your first $5. This is Daily Fantasy Simplified. You can use your knowledge of many different sports, put together NFL, NBA, college football, you name it. You can put together a play, a lineup using all different sports, flex plays, power plays, but you got to use the code 5. That'll get you $50 instantly when you play your first $5. All right, y'all. I'm out of answers. I have no idea what the hell we're going to talk about, what we're going to say that the Heat are going to do differently, blah, blah, blah. Boston drops 21 threes on them. They go up to New York, and let me just quickly box score watch. The Knicks drop 20 more threes on them, and I don't know if this is a defensive issue. I don't know if this is I don't know what this is, but I do know that the Heat are reeling. As I mentioned in the open, they've lost 8 out of 10. They're sliding in the Eastern Conference, despite some pretty incredible play by a couple guys that we'll talk about today. It's been a rough stretch. I mean, a win against Brooklyn is in there when I talk about losing 8 out of 10, and I forgot who the other victories against off the top of my head. So it's not good. I don't even want to look at the comments right now. Brady, I'll start with you because you're usually the most level-headed of us. How are we supposed to absorb 8 out of 10? And I'm sticking to that for a reason because it is a relatively bigger sample size. And also, what the hell went wrong late in this game where they just couldn't quite get back against the Knicks? Is it a reoccurring theme we're seeing night over night?
Oh, 100%. It's definitely a reoccurring theme. I think we're definitely seeing a lot of the same things over and over again. But I'll say, I mean, I trust Miami a little more just generally in games like this that are high scoring back and forth compared to in the mud games, which is different than we're used to. I just don't trust Miami to kind of play defensively into that style when they're not making shots because it bleeds into their defense. In a game like this, I trust them a little more when it's kind of a back and forth. They found flow in the first half. You're able to score in bunches, but they weren't able – they don't have the talent level to outshoot that type of team when they're shooting like that. Because there was even pockets of the game you could bring up the defense. I thought they were just tough shots. I thought they were just making like some – I mean, you count the Josh Hart 3, you count the Jalen Brunson in the corner 3, even just the general shots that they were making I thought was tight defense, just kind of good players making good plays. That's what happens when Brunson had 47. I mean, it's not all tough shots, but it was a lot of tough shots. He's just a really tough player to guard. Talking about the things that went wrong, I mean, there's two players that we could talk about, or mainly one that dominated in this game, that played extremely well, that looked like the best player on the team for pockets of this game. There's a couple players that we have to mention. I mean, that's going to be the main thing here that are not playing well. Bam has been in his head. He's in his head offensively. He can't get out of his own way right now. It feels like there's pockets of the game where he tries to put his head down and go. I mean, you know a player's in his head when he has that pass early in the game off the backboard when he tried to throw it to Ware, and it was just not even near anything. And right after that, he shot a three, and it was well short, and it was an air ball. And it was just like those two plays specifically is what comes to mind when I think about a guy that's just in his head and not playing good offensive basketball right now. And look, let's be honest as well. As much as we used to talk about, certain players who fit this offense, this style of isolation stuff, in theory, the player on paper that doesn't fit it to a T is Bam to me. I mean, like if you zoom out and take everything out of the equation, a guy that is no longer using screens, a guy that was dominantly getting most of his points off the short roll free throw line where he'd catch quick and fire, those are eliminated from his game. It just feels like he's out of sorts. Another player, Andrew Wiggins, has not been good. He just has not been found his flow offensively. It just feels like it's been a lot of over dribbling, which is something you do not want to see from Andrew Wiggins. A lot of over dribbling. Like you want him to be concise in his spots. And this has just been a really bad stretch for him. It just feels like offensively he is another one of these players that I do think fits this offense and can play faster and do certain things, but has just not had it. And then the last player I just want to mention, I mean, it's getting rough in the Simone Fontecchio minutes. It's been a stretch here where so much of the reason why the offense was clicking early in the season was because their 8th, 9th, and 10th players were playing at an insanely high level. Like there was no drop off on lineups because they just had such consistency 1 through 10. That has not been the case over the last month. That has not been the case. They do not have consistency throughout the rotation with the depth. And the Fontecchio minutes just have been a little rough. I mean, you're not getting elite defense. He gives you a little bit of size on the boards for sure, but the shooting has not been consistent enough. Another player that I feel like at times has been a lot of over dribbling. You want things to be a little bit more concise, and that's not the players you want over dribbling. There's supposed to be offense that is max 2-3 dribbles, and then you swing to the next guy and keep it moving on the wheel. So yeah, those are just 3 names that I feel like we just have to mention at the top that have consistently over the last few games on this stretch that we're going to bring up have just not been playing good basketball, and it's actively leading to these losses.
Fontecchio. So check this out. This is since December 9th. He's been 0 of 5, 1 of 5, 2 of 7, 4 of 13, and 1 of 6 tonight. It's time for him to exit the rotation, folks. Bam Adebayo has not been good enough. 14 and 9 tonight. He's averaging 12 and 12 over his last 3. Andrew Wiggins averaging 9 points over his last 3. These are guys that if Tyler Hero is not playing, they need to play bigger roles offensively, because to expect Khalil Ware to get 28 and 19 is, although he's been playing great lately offensively, I think that, Bam just has to be better. Everybody after the last post-game show, Alex, said that we avoided talking about Bam Adebayo because we're such apologists. So I give you the floor to explain to people that Bam Adebayo is not playing good basketball, and your thoughts on not just how he can turn it around, but what exactly is it? Just that he's in his head, or is it frankly that this offense is so? He's talked, and he was on that podcast with Norm where he said, I've had to make the most sacrifices of everybody. Are we seeing that just come to fruition, and this is how it's going to be? How does he break out of a slump like this? I'm throwing a lot of Bam questions at you because the comments say we don't talk Bam struggle. So we're going to talk Bam struggle.
I mean, let's do it, man. They already consider me a Bam apologist and a Ware hater. So I'll be the target here. We'll do it. But no, let's get this out of the way. Bam has 100% been playing bad and needs to be better. I even thought he kind of had some uneven moments on defense today on the pick and roll. And I understand why. There was time, Brunson was having a hell of a game, obviously a hell of a player, like Brady said, who has so many of his shots. It's every single time the Heat play them. I come away impressed by him, even if some of the games aren't as dominant as this one, because so many of his of his touches and his the shots he ends up making, right, are just so tough and well contested, well defended. You know, like they were sending him into help, and he was still finding a way to get through, being defended by strong defenders. He is a really impressive scorer, man. And I think like Bam had a couple plays on defense where he kind of overreacted a little bit after Brunson came off the pick and roll, and gave up a couple of easy ones. And yeah, like I thought he just, obviously the defense hasn't necessarily been the issue, but just to point that out, that he even had some weird moments tonight. I 100% agree that he's in his head. Brady was talking about it earlier, and then the other one that stood out to me regarding that was he had like a missed shot in the paint that was also really bad. That it was somewhere in that same stretch as the airball three and the botched lob to Kalel. Like, it's just so obvious that, like, he's in an offensive funk right now. It feels like this happens every season. At some point during the season, he just has a really rough stretch on offense. He needs to be better. There's no doubt about it. And then going into the stuff about the offense that you guys already touched on, I do think it's affecting him in a way. I just think in general, like, he's not the recipient of a lot of these easier shots anymore. Like, I feel like the high quality looks for him have been kind of thrown out the window. It feels like a lot of them have been like, like Bam having to create something for himself. And we know, like, he's going to settle for a lot of mid-range shots. He occasionally takes some threes. It's obvious, by the way, that Kalel is like the much more willing three-point shooter between the two of them. Like, I feel like Bam doesn't necessarily want to unless he's wide open. If Kalel sees a little bit of space, he doesn't mind getting it off. And you see that in their game where, like, Bam is obviously like a much more talented shot creator and passer than Kalel. But the thing is, he has, as we've talked about for years now, limitations, where he's not just a guy that can go out and create buckets for you possession after possession. And in this offense where it's drive or get off the ball, if he's not the recipient of any dump down passes or lobs, he, as Brady mentioned, that pocket pass to the middle of the floor, he's not seeing any of that type of stuff anymore. And I feel like now he's solely relying on tougher shots, and he's just not that guy. Like, he can do it occasionally, but he's not that guy. And so I do think, like, he's going to play better than this. There's no doubt about it. I think he's going to come back to form at some point here. But I do think, like, a lot of what we're seeing here is a result of the offense that they've been trying to run. It's just been like this obvious funk that he's been in, but the offense stuff, I don't know where the easy buckets come from. They ran more screen and roll tonight.
They tried.
There was definitely some screen and roll, and it didn't always result in a bucket, but it's an interesting wrinkle that they threw in because, like, it's just a different way of trying to collapse the defense, right? Like, I don't think they only have to run one certain thing. I think they can get into some handoff stuff too. Bam is also somebody who has done well playing with strong handoff players. Maybe we see that with Norm. Norm was running pick and rolls tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if they went to some handoff stuff at some point. I don't know if it happens soon, but as like the easy buckets are gone for Bam. He had the one really nice drive where he finished reverse. I wish we would see. I mean, obviously, been saying that for years now. We all have that. We could see more of that, of him taking bigs off the dribble and finishing. They
also ran that play for him out of the timeout where they wanted to force feed him to see the ball go in, where they read that back screen and had lob to him like that. Those are like just the small signs of, like, knowing a guy's in a funk and you wanting him to like get out of it, like that. That's just like a clear thing.
For sure. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, we're not used to seeing that. So it's like, oh man, they're making it real clear that, like, we're trying to get this guy going. But just to finish off the point, as far as like what's wrong and why he can't actually, like, get to the basket more like we think he can, since he's a big who can handle a little bit, I feel like he can't do it if there's help defense there. If he has the big, like, isolated and there's nobody, and like the weak side defense isn't strong, if there isn't a big weak side defender that's in that rotation, I mean, I don't see it for him. It has to be a drive and go straight to the bucket. If there's people waiting for him down there, I don't see it for him. And so they've got to find a way to get him at least some easy ones. I'm not saying reorient the offense towards Bam, make it around him, but this shot profile for him is definitely not getting the most out of him on offense. And he's had to sacrifice. He hasn't complained about it, but I do think there's something here for sure.
What's interesting is to compare his shot profile to Kalel Ware on a night like tonight and think about, like, how can they not get Bam in some of those same spots to do that kind of stuff. And I know maybe, asking Bam to go 5 of 7 from 3 it isn't necessarily there, but to not be able to get him closer to the basket more often is a problem. And they're not going to win games if Bam doesn't figure this out eventually. We'll get into the player of the night because Kel'el Ware was that for the Heat. He probably, frankly, could have scored 35 and 20 instead of the 28 and 19 he got. But there's somebody that ultimately was the player of the night that we're going to give a shout out on the Knicks side. Alex, let's get to that segment.
And now it's time for the A Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
So shout out to Kel'el Ware because 28 and 19, he's been playing really spirited basketball lately. The Ware fans are out screaming loudly how he is better than any big man on the Miami Heat. Norm had moments, but it was really just about his third quarter. And everyone else on the Heat, Jaquez, he looks better offensively, but let's not sugarcoat things. If you lose a game where you shoot relatively the same amount of field goals, 87 to 85, shoot 49% from 3, out rebound the Knicks, and you only turn it over 11 times, that's 1 less than the Knicks. If you lose that game, that's a problem. And the Heat aren't the type of team that can lose games where they outperform the other team in key metrics like the ones I just referenced. They lost because Jalen Brunson was just absolutely unstoppable. He is that kind of guy that when he gets going, 47 points, 8 assists without a turnover. He manipulates the game in ways that of all the smaller players, he's probably the only guy in the league at his size that I think y'all keep me honest here, that I think could probably lead a team to a title at his size because he's shorter than SGA. SGA is a solid 6'6". Brunson ain't that, right? Or am I?
The only comparable is like, I guess, Steph, but even then, like, he's shorter than Steph, stronger for sure. But yeah. Like he's incredible, man.
They got Brunson listed at 6'2". I don't know if that's accurate, but so he is that kind of engine, and so shout out to him. He always gives the Heat trouble in a myriad of ways. Cat was completely quiet, so Bam probably tonight is going to point at Cat's box score and try to say, listen, that's what I was up to tonight. But he's the player of the night. There's not really much else to say other than the Heat need to find a way to shut the water off on some of these guys at least long enough to stay in these games. They did that tonight. They stayed close, but it just wasn't enough to get the victory. Anything they could have done differently, Brady? Like, I think that there was a couple plays, and I think Alex mentioned it earlier, where Bam kind of overcompensated because Brunson had it going so much that it ended up with a couple dunks, wide open dunks underneath the basket. Anything they could have done differently against Brunson that you saw tonight?
Well, I would say early in the game, it was a lot of single coverage because of the fact that Towns went off them recently. So I think there was a little recency bias there where, as expected, they come out with Bam on Towns and they put Kel'el on Josh Hart to kind of help off, where they did not want Karl Anthony Towns being the enforcer, like being the primary guy. So what that leaves you with is a lot of single coverage on Brunson, where he's able to kind of work one-on-one, get to the elbow, get to the mid-range, a lot of step-back threes. Like I said, those step-back threes are not easy shots. They look like easy shots for him, but those are just tough shots that he ends up making. And to Alex's point later in the game, when a guy has 40, like in the fourth quarter, you're going to have to start helping over. There's no more single coverage. You're going to start having to send a little bit more help. And when you help off a guy like that, that is a patient player and just a really good decision maker, it's a kick, it's a swing. And when you have a team that seems like they just can't miss across the board, it felt like everything they threw up was kind of going in. Mikal Bridges had the big first half. I mean, OG hit a bunch of big shots. Like, they were just kind of firing from everywhere. It's just tough to deal with. And this is the biggest issue is Miami wants to play this fast-paced offense. They want to play early clock, fast pace. When you do that, you're leaving yourself very vulnerable to teams doing the same thing back to you, because you're not going to be able to play fast pace while letting the other team come down and slow the game down in the half court. That's never going to happen. So if you want to run, you have to be ready to defend the run. And then that's kind of what's happening here. It's like these games that are in the mud and ugly, it's like these games are even either way, because it's just like teams are leaning into the style that they end up kind of putting out. And like I said earlier, they don't have the overall talent level to match a team like this when they're at that level, like when they're shooting over 50% from three and they're doing all that stuff. So yeah, I think that was kind of thing. I probably would still go Kalel player of the game just because I'm biased. I mean, this was a really fun game. I mean, the fact that he's made, I think it's 11 of his last 14 threes in these last two games. Like that is an insane stat for a big man like that. Like that is not a normal stat to throw out there. Like he is absolutely, like he does that little hop into his little jumper, and when he does that little hop, or if he throws a jab step like pass fake, it gets into it.
That hop, man.
He's
like,
mastered.
It's so much smoother when he does that little hop, like the stuff before the shot.
It's almost like he doesn't think about it. Like it's when those moments when he's just sitting there overthinking the shot, it doesn't work as often. Right now, like he's in flow state. Like he's not thinking about the jumper, overthinking it. That he's just letting it fly, and he has a really good jumper. So that part of it's just fun to watch right now, just because he's such a threat, and teams are still trying to like make decisions on it, because it's not all over the scouting report. That's like, okay, we have the hard closeout at Kalel, we're on the 3-point line. That's not there yet. So he still has these open looks on the weak side, and when he's confident, when he's aggressive, he is an incredibly tough player to deal with, because you obviously have the interior force where if you kind of leave him alone, any ball handler could throw the ball to him, and he's a force on the offensive boards. So the 3-point shot is just kind of a step that I didn't know would come this quickly. Like I thought he'd be the occasional 3-point shooter, and maybe it's going to come back down to life, I feel like, as the season goes on. But still, the ability to kind of have this efficient of a jumper at this point it's impressive. It's good to see. So, and I thought, and I keep saying this as well, when he's playing well offensively, like when he's aggressive, doing all this stuff, everything else looks so much better. I mean, that you saw the 19 or 20 rebounds. I think they took one away. He had 20 at one point. I think I see 19 now. When he has 19 rebounds like that, it's he like they're strong rebounds. Like he's going up and getting them. They're not like the AAU rebounds where he's just putting his hands up in the air and he's taller than everybody. No, he's going up and getting them. Like I thought he just played a really strong game. It just felt like whenever he was in the game, he was just pretty dominant. So credit to him.
Yeah, he looked good. It's going to continue to make fans call for Spo to lean into the lineup with Bam and Ware out there. And guess what? Spo can't play any other lineup because that's just who's available. So that's just how that's going. Alex, before we get to the play of the night and wrap up the show, your thoughts on Jaime Jaquez, who I think is starting to find his groove again offensively off the bench. I thought he's a worthy call out, a night where we're not going to focus on the Knicks and all the players that did well there. Brunson dominated, and we don't want to talk about the Knicks. So your thoughts on Jaquez before we close?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to talk about the Knicks either after they put up a 98th percentile half-court offensive rating. Sheesh. And a lot of that was Brunson, but Bridges played his part there, all that. Anyways, Jaquez, man, I'm glad to see him having these strong games again. I wasn't really concerned anyways after we saw a little bit of drop off, just because in general his process I think has been pretty good. Like to be fair, like he started the season off shooting an insane percent, which is obviously like that's his strong suit, right? But he wasn't doing that last season, and the percentage jump was like 15-20 percentage points better than last year. It was an insane jump from last season. And outside of like the results of the rim shooting, which I think kind of went down a little bit, in general, like his ability to just get into the paint and make decisions, right? Make better decisions than he was making last season, I think has just been the biggest difference. And, I mentioned it on other shows, the fact that he can throw in a midi or two every now and then as a counter in that short mid-range area in the paint. I'm just still very impressed overall with what I've seen from him. Like he is a relentless attacker. He is able to finish even when guys are there. Like the footwork has been very crafty. Just in general, like he looks so much more composed and poised. I almost combined the words composed, which maybe should be a thing. He played very composed out there. Jaquez did.
It makes sense to me. Let's get to the play of the night. We'll use that to kind of close the show out on what otherwise was a tough evening for the Heat, who, they scored enough to win, but didn't play well enough defensively. And at this style of basketball, defense has to be the catalyst. Let's get to the play of the night before we close up shop.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
We're running through the comments here as the X-ray of the play of the day. Everyone's saying trade Bam for Giannis in the comments. To our podcast listeners who are just listening to the audio version of this, I'm flipping through the comments here, trying to avoid the nasty ones. Hopefully that person doesn't get blocked. But here's one that says, Bam stands are trying to gaslight by talking about Hero. Bam is the one that stinks. Ridiculous comment because, I mean, to even bring up Hero tonight makes no sense. I'm just going to leave those comments alone. That is a cesspool of unproductivity. So Toronto's up next. Then they go to Atlanta, Indiana, and then Denver. That's the remainder of December. How the hell are they going to, I mean, they basically, I think they got to go 2-2 to just stop the bleeding here. Let's just look ahead to Toronto before we close. Alex, I'll go to you first. How the hell do they turn this around against the Raptors at home?
Yeah, I don't love this one as a turnaround game. The Raptors.
Me neither.
Yeah. I think, however, just from like comparing to the last game, I think they can do a better job on some of those guys that were hitting a lot of jumpers in that game. We talked about it that night, but like Ingram obviously was the biggest problem in that aspect. Quickly to a lesser extent, I think if their point of attack defense is a little bit better in this one than it was in that game, I think they have a shot. Just in general, it's become so like normal because we've been, having to deal with it all game. I mean, all season, but like the Heat have just had so many guys in and out as well. It's not great because you want to see them all together. Obviously, it'd be really nice to have, Hero and Pella back. Obviously you want Jovic to come back healthy too as well. But as far as like the Raptors go, I think they in general do a pretty good job on Scotty Barnes. He doesn't play like terrible against them like some other guys, but he's like one of the guys I'm less worried about just because in general they're really good at cutting off the paint and putting, like they have a guy like Bam to put onto him, especially when they're starting Kalel. And so I think when you and by the way, that's been a nice advantage of being able to play them together is that you can go back to that and kind of have Bam be able to take on multiple different roles in the defense. So that's going to help versus Scotty. But other than that, like I said, I think if you contain Ingram, if you contain quickly, I think they'll give themselves a real shot to be able to, break out of this. But it's not going to be easy, man. The Raptors have been a really good defense. The Heat's offense has really been struggling. And tonight was another night, just like the last game, where their shots at the rim were terrible. Only made half of them. Just really, really bad. And you saw a lot of similarities with that Celtics game because the Knicks and the Celtics both love to take a high volume of threes. That's been like the biggest difference with the Knicks this year with the Mike Brown offense is that they're getting up a lot more threes. Like they've always had the threats to shoot, guys who can shoot, but they're getting them up at a much higher rate this season. We saw that, and they've already played this team so many times. I think this is the fourth time already, right? I think the season series is over.
Yeah.
In mid-December, which is crazy. So we've obviously like seen that already, but teams like the Celtics and like the Knicks that are more than comfortable taking a high volume of threes, it's not necessarily the best for the Heat's defensive game plan because that's kind of what they're allowing. It's like, okay, you're going to let us take all these threes. Here you go. Swing, three, swing, three.
Yep.
The Heat love to help and play in those gaps, man. And Bridges was a huge recipient of that in the first half. And then OG kind of turned up in the second half with some of that as well.
Brady, to close, not just against Toronto, to close out the year. If I could tell you one thing, one single solitary thing can change for this Miami Heat team in these final 4 games to close out the year, you only get to choose one thing. What is that thing?
I would say the thing that would make the biggest difference is they get productive depth back. I think that's the number one thing. Like, I could sit here and say an individual play better. I could sit here and say get Bam averaging 20 plus and playing efficiently. But ultimately, I don't think anything matters about individual players, because every one of these games and every one of these losses, there's 2 players that play well, and there's a whole, there's maybe 2 or 3 players that play okay, like good enough, role players kind of getting by. And then there's guys that are not playing well. Where early in the season, the big storyline was that you had literally 9 guys where you could talk about like any of them. You could have brought up any name, and he could have been a player of the game of a lot of these podcasts. So if they could find a way to get productive, and that's you're letting me just say whatever I want here, because this is probably not realistic, right? Like, this is, you're catching fire in a bottle here. If you can get all of a sudden so many guys playing so well that you have real depth back, and this also allows complete health, that you get Tyler, Pella, Nico are out in this game all back, and you kind of, rebuild this depth a little bit. It's just, I don't really see a pathway to that happening to that degree. It felt like early in the season, there was like a lot happening at once. Like, for example, there's a game like this tonight, and it's the same thing in that Toronto game. Davion and Drew were big storylines of that Toronto game that they lost last week. And tonight, I thought they were really good early in this game. I mean, Davion came out playing really well, didn't miss a shot early on the game. He goes out, Drew comes in, Drew runs off 7 points, doesn't miss a shot. I thought they've been good role players, like good point of attack defenders, even on a night where Brunson's dropping 47, but they've been good, productive role players for them. The issue is that early in the season, a lot of the guys that are role players were playing above their heads into another degree, right? Like, that's kind of what was happening. And right now they're playing in the right role, but it's still not leading to wins, because they need them honestly playing at a higher than a role player level. So if they could find a way to get some type of depth back and figure something out, I mean, if we're going to, this is another podcast, Ethan would be saying to save this, but with the way Khalil is playing, there's no way if they get healthy here, he's going to the bench. He is a starter. If you talk about moving forward in the finishing of the year, he is a starter. So what that means is when Tyler comes back, somebody is going to the bench, and maybe that does add to the I guess overall depth. I'm not saying it's Tyler. Maybe it's Wiggins. Maybe we go down the line and talk about individual guys who it ends up being. But either way, maybe that is the way to end up building a little bit of depth, is adding one of your core starting scorers back down to the bench. It could end up happening. So I don't know. I think that would be the number one thing more than individual player. I think they need a little bit of fluidity, because look, that's also the way to survive in this offense, right? Like playing bodies, playing
interchangeable parts. Yeah.
Right now they don't have that. It felt like guys go off the floor and you're like, okay, wait, when can we get those guys back in?
No, listen, I love watching Kasper Siakam get minutes, but this ain't the time for that. Lost at 8 out of 10. They need to plug in as many of the regular rotation guys as possible. I don't expect to see Tyler, y'all, so don't expect to see him in these next few games. That's just my gut feeling. So, no, I don't mean it like that. I'm not counting on it. And as much as Brady is saying that the depth and them leaning back into that will be a huge part of this, I'm also looking for Norm and Bam to play better up at the top of the roster. I think that would be a good way for them to end this season, end this year essentially, and turn the page to 2026, is to get Norm and Bam back into that comfort level. We'll see if they do. They lose again tonight, 8 out of 10. I keep emphasizing that because they're going in the wrong direction. They lose up in New York. We'll have you covered for the game against Toronto. Shout out to our sponsors, Prize Picks, C. Armin Staffing, as well as insurancebylinet.com. Use the code 5 on Prize Picks off the floor. Y'all know the Discord server. Good night.